What up, everyone? So, here to do a quick movie review. I want to make this more of a regular thing, and I've been kind of on a roll lately with videos, doing lots of recording, and I want to do a quick review of Sonic the Hedgehog. Just saw it like a couple hours ago, and I want to talk about it. Not a ton to say here, but mostly just like, giving my opinion on it, and then want to hear your opinion as well, and then get a discussion going in the comments. So I wore my Sonic the Hedgehog shirt in honor of the movie. That's what he looked like before the CGI switch. This is pre-CGI switch Sonic. So I wore this shirt. Same hairstyle and everything. So, overall thoughts of the movie, I liked it. I enjoyed it. It was no cinematic feature by far, so there still are things to talk about and criticism to have, but it was still entertaining. So I still have to hold this movie to the same standards I hold all movies. Just because I liked a movie or was enjoyable doesn't necessarily make it a good movie. There's always the difference when I say something's a good movie and it's an entertaining movie and I liked it. The entertaining side of it was just specific to me and entertaining to the general population. A good movie means it's actually well done. So I still hold it to the same standards I do for everything. But overall, it was a good movie. It was entertaining in the sense that it had funny parts to it. It was visually pleasing. But I wouldn't call it a good movie because, the story didn't make a bunch of sense. It was really kind of goofy and like over the top, but intentionally so. And if you watch my last movie review of Birds of Prey, I hated that movie because it was goofy, but because it wasn't intentionally so. That movie tried to be serious, and that movie tried to make a story that made sense, and they tried to connect things together, and it just didn't work. This one is intentionally just playful. It's kind of, I wouldn't say it's like a kid's movie. It definitely would be entertaining for kids, but I don't think it was geared towards kids. But at the same time, I don't think they were trying to make this brilliant cinematic movie that ties in all these different things. I think they were just kind of trying to be fun and playful. And as far as video game movies go, it's one of the better ones out there because video game movies are almost always cursed. They always do really bad because it's hard to translate a lot of games into movies because video games a lot of times have very little storyline unless you're playing an actual story game. And even still, even those ones, they just often don't translate to movies and they're most of the time bad. There's a few exceptions to that, but mostly crappy. But this one didn't try to be too serious. It realized that Sonic the Hedgehog is kind of a fun and goofy character, and they really played on that. He was just making jokes a lot of the time, and that's what they went for, and there's like a lot of pop culture references. And granted, not all the jokes were funny. I think some of the jokes they made were really stupid and really cheesy, but there were parts of it that I legitimately thought was like actually funny. I actually laughed at it. And the contrary, where I'll keep relating to Birds of Prey because that was my last movie review. The contrary to that, I really didn't find anything funny in that movie. They tried so hard to be funny and it was constantly falling short. This one had a lot of jokes that fell short, but also things that were actually legitimately funny. And there was a lot of pop culture references in there that I don't think a lot of people caught or they just didn't realize it was a joke. So it's kind of funny to see things that other people didn't find funny because they just didn't get it. There was a lot of subtle references in there though, a ton of them, and you may not have caught every joke, but there were some things in there that I thought were legit funny. So, the first thing I want to talk about is the whole CGI redo of it. I'm sure you've seen a million videos on it at this point, but if you haven't seen pictures of it, hopefully I'll be pulling one up now, but probably not because I'm terrible at posting pictures in my videos. But they changed the whole look of him because originally he looked like a bag of shit. Now, there was this rumor going around that it was something done intentionally by the studio. The studios kind of try to put out this rumor that that's something they did intentionally to gain marketing for the movie. And the first thing I said to that is like, that's bullshit. That sounds like an excuse that someone would make when they've made a mistake. Like, that's like the immature thing to say, like, oh yeah, I did that on purpose. That's something I was trying to do. So it seemed really stupid and not believable. But as time goes on and the more I think about it, it almost kind of does seem like that. I'm not saying I believe that, but I'm just saying the more I think about it, the more it makes a little bit of sense. Because, if you saw the original design of it, it really didn't make any sense. So we've seen CGI movies before that have bad designs. We've seen two-dimensional characters go into three-dimensional so many times and it just looks awful, but there's usually reasons for that. They want these characters to look more realistic and real to real life. And that's what they said the original design was for, but it doesn't really make any sense because they said they wanted him to look more realistic, but he didn't. He didn't look any more realistic than he would have in the video game. He looked equally as ridiculous because he's a fucking talking hedgehog. So yeah, of course, like, there's no realism to it. There's no way they could have ever designed Sonic to make him look like a real hedgehog. It wouldn't have made sense. So when they said they did that design and to be more realistic, that just honestly doesn't make sense to. And the quality of the CGI was actually pretty good in the movie, so I also find it a little hard to believe they retranslated all the CGI in that short amount of time. There's just a few little things that I keep noticing along the way where it's like, what if that's true? What if it was just some big plot just to gain notoriety for it? Because every time I think back to it, there's something that doesn't make sense about why they would even try the original design of it. I don't know, there's so many things about it. It's just something interesting to bring up. I don't know the true answer either way, and I don't think we ever will, but it's just funny to think about this whole conspiracy theory of it, that maybe it was. But either way, we're all happy with the new design of it. He looks much better. He actually looked good in the movie. He looks they gave him like kind of that cuter look versus the first version, which is kind of a, I guess, more realistic. But he actually looked really good in the movie. And overall, the CGI wasn't too bad. It wasn't great, so it wasn't like really realistic looking, but it was good enough. The good thing about it is there weren't that many scenes where CGI and real life were really like meeting hand to hand, so that made it okay. And I mentioned this before, it's like CGI always looks fine until it's put up side by side with something realistic, and then all of a sudden you realize how fake it looks. And I always bring up the example of Avatar, not The Last Airbender, but the Avatar movie, that everyone was so crazy about the CGI on it. And there was only really one scene in the movie where the real life people and the CGI versions came side by side, and when you saw it, it looked like shit. So when people were saying it was so good, it's like, it only looked good because there was nothing to compare it by. The one scene where they had a human with one of the Avatar people, it looked like shit. And they kind of avoided that a lot in this movie. There's not too many times where Sonic was actually touching anyone. There was a few times that he did, and it's like, it was very obvious that CGI wasn't super great. But for the most part, they avoided it, and he kind of was doing his own thing. So overall, they did a decent job at it. So it was, again, not fantastic, but they did it in a way where it was believable, and it wasn't distracting. Because I hate it when CGI is so bad that you lose focus in the movie because it's constantly being pointed out how terrible it is. So that was fine. And then as far as like Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik, I think everyone can agree that was a weird choice. And in the movie, it wasn't really justified much more. So the reason he was cast is that it is not a choice. But from the stories I've read and things online, he lobbied for that. So he actually wanted the part. When you become someone that's as famous as Jim Carrey, I'm sure he has no shortage of money and he doesn't really need work, so he kind of gets to pick and choose what he wants to do. So he actually fought for that position because he is such a big Sonic the Hedgehog fan, which I think is cool. I respect that in the sense that he really liked something and was such a big fan that he wanted to be in the movie. So I like it in that sense. That being said, he was still a weird choice. From the second it was revealed that he was Dr. Robotnik, it was weird. Then you saw pictures of him and he looked weird. And in the movie, it was all kind of weird. He did fine. He's a very good actor, so it's not like his acting was poor, but it just seemed like a weird choice. But, you know, whatever. You kind of just accepted it at a certain point. And he was funny, too. There was a lot of parts where he tried to be funny, and again, it just didn't land at all, because Jim Carrey hasn't been funny in like 20 years. But there were some little parts that were written in there that were kind of funny. But, you know, he just always plays that same character. He plays different versions. He still, like, when he was acting, he still looks like Ace Ventura to me, like in his mannerisms and things like that. And I feel like he's played that same character for 20 years now, because he has like similar mannerisms, and he's over the top, eccentric, flamboyant version of a person, and he kind of played that same role in this. So he just kind of translated it into a more evil version of like Ace Ventura. So there's really wasn't much different about that in the sense that he always plays that character. But, you know, it was still fine because like I said, it's hard to translate games into movies. It's hard to go from two-dimensional to three-dimensional. So there really is no good choice because the way Dr. Robotnik looks in the video games is ridiculous. His shape is absolutely absurd. So the only way they could have him in the movie and look like that was to make him a CGI character and not make him human. There's no human they could have cast as him to make it look actually like that character. But there's just the only thing I said there could have been better choices is just different choices of how someone would have portrayed that character. In the same sense that James Marsden played like one of the main antagonists, that a character that didn't exist in any video game, they just kind of put him in there, but he did a good job. The way he kind of played off Sonic, like, again, I wouldn't say it was like the best choice ever, but he did a good job at that. And Jim Carrey just kind of did his own thing and did this very weird character, and it was still weird in the movie. I guess that's what I'm trying to sum up and say. Even after seeing the movie, I still think there was better choices than Jim Carrey, but he did okay. It was good enough where it's like, okay, you accept it. No big deal there. And then I like how they kind of set up. They definitely are setting it up for a sequel. I don't know if they will make one. That all depends on how much movie this money makes. But from what I've seen, it's been getting positive reviews. Not fantastic reviews, but good reviews. From critics, from just people that have seen the movie. I like the movie, so I think word of mouth is going to spread. And I think it'll have a large child audience because it was really appropriate for children and things like that. There wasn't any swearing or anything like that, so a lot of kids can see it. And I think people that hear it's good will go check it out. So I have a feeling it'll make a good amount of money, at least enough to do a sequel. So I think they will, hopefully, but not for sure. Because they had the echidnas in the beginning of the movie. If you weren't paying attention, the character shooting the bow and arrows at Sonic at the very beginning were the echidnas, which Knuckles is. Now, I'm not sure if he was one of those echidnas. He could have been. He could have very well have been in that group, but we don't know for sure. But they at least introduced that species, and then if you stayed for the end credits, Tails was shown off in there, and people were going nuts in the theater. The person I was sitting next to absolutely lost their shit. It was one of my friends that came with me, but she lost it, screaming, kicking the whole 9 yards, and it was pretty eccentric. But a lot of other people were losing in the theater too. They were really excited about it. And I'll admit, I even got a little excited too, because it's just fun to see those characters introduced. I'm a pretty big Sonic the Hedgehog fan. I played a lot of the games, but I just like the character. I've liked all the characters from that game, and I just like the way they're designed. I like them in general. If you've seen my overview of my collection, I have a lot of the comics from Sonic, like I have some of the original artwork, have the crossover he did with Mega Man, like some of the original drawings from that, and I've always liked it. I thought he was a cool character. So it's exciting to see the other characters possibly come in. So if they do a sequel, it'll most definitely have Tails and probably Knuckles in it, which I think would be really cool. And being lofty and dreamy, how cool would it be if eventually it did gain momentum and got big enough to where they could do like a Sonic Mega Man crossover? Like that would be really cool to me and worth seeing. So that's pretty much all I have to say about it. Not anything too brilliant to talk about as far as that movie. Overall, I liked it. I think it's something that is worth seeing. If you're a Sonic the Hedgehog fan, I think you should go see it either way. You're not going to be blown away by it, and like I said, it's not a cinematically great film. A lot of the story doesn't make sense. There's a lot of plot holes and a lot of goofy stuff that just would never happen in reality. But again, it's supposed to be that way. That's kind of what they're going for. So that being said, overall, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Because it was good, I liked it, it's entertaining. I don't regret going to see it like I did Birds of Prey. I actually want my money back for that. And I think this is worth going to the movies and checking out, and it's entertaining to watch, so I'd say go check it out. But again, not anything super fantastic to talk about there. I hope they do a sequel. Other than that, let me know what you guys thought about it. Let me know what your ratings would be on that movie. Let me know some of the pop culture references you got in the movie or some of the jokes that you may think other people would have missed, and what you hope to see in the future. Other than that, my monthly review is recorded actually, so I have that on the way. I recorded it last night. I just wanted to shoot this quick video out, and because it's time sensitive because we just saw the movie a couple hours ago. The monthly review will take a few days for me to edit and process and upload, but it is here and it is coming, so I hope to be more consistent about these videos. Thank you all for watching and supporting. See you on the next one. Love y'all. Peace.